Hey, have you missed the Twitter files lately? We've got another one, and this is a doozy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Yesterday afternoon, or morning on the West Coast, Matt Taibbi released yet another Twitter files thread, which he numbered 15. Actually, it should be 16. But Lee Fang failed to number his Big Pharma Twitter files release, and that created the confusion. The Matt Taibbi's target this time is one that has come up before, Hamilton 68, which figured in Twitter Files 14, the Russiagate lies. Hamilton 68 was a project of a former FBI counterintelligence official and existed solely to accuse natural person account holders on Twitter of being Russian bots. 2 weeks after first breaking the story, Taibbi is following up on it. Before I describe the latest drop in detail and then analyze it, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, 1984 was not an instruction manual, which is the point. We deal here with a self-appointed ministry of truth. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now, Hamilton 68 had the backing of an entity calling itself Americans Securing Democracy. I've left a link in the description to a single tweet from Twitter Files 14 that will fill you in. That's the one having the animated poster showing Vladimir Putin releasing red birds instead of blue birds into the air. 2 days ago, Matt Taibbi tweeted his public reply to 7 CIA officials or sources. Actually, they are all ASD people, including one neoconservative correspondent. They refused comment on Hamilton 68. The 7 were Michael Morrell, former acting director of the CIA and now at CBS News; Bill Kristol, founder of the Weekly Standard; Clint Watts, the architect of Hamilton 68; Thomas Hendrik Ilves, former president of Estonia and now a big World Economic Forum wheel; Michael McAlpine, former U.S. ambassador to Russia in the Obama administration; Anna Palacio, former member of the European Union Parliament; and John Podesta, the John Podesta. Taibbi called them out for saying no comment and said, I have the list, time to come clean. I have a link in the description to that tweet. Alliance for Securing Democracy answered back with 2 links to their for public consumption statements about Hamilton 68 and how it worked. Matt Taibbi contemptuously told them he didn't need their public statements, for he had the real story. In his tweet, to which I have also left a link in the description, he said he had sent them specific questions and offered them the courtesy of an opportunity to respond. Well, they never did respond. So, Matt Taibbi released this thread yesterday morning beginning at 7:49 a.m. Pacific time. And here is the thread, or at least its text. I've left links in the description to every other tweet, the odd numbers, because this thread has 43 tweets in all, an odd number. This is only the text. I urge you to follow those links because more than half of them have very interesting slideshows, screen caps, and videos. And I will warn you, I do bowdlerize. Twitter does not. Bear this in mind when you follow any of the links. Without further ado, here we go. Thread, Twitter Files number 15. Move over, Jason Blair. Twitter Files expose next great media fraud. I think we need to just call this out on the baloney it is. falsely accuses a bunch of legitimate right-leaning accounts of being Russian bots. Virtually any conclusion drawn here will take conversations in conservative circles on Twitter and accuse them of being Russian. These are quotes by Twitter executives about Hamilton 68, a digital dashboard that claimed to track Russian influence and was the source of hundreds, if not thousands, of mainstream print and TV news stories in the Trump years. The dashboard was headed by former FBI counterintelligence official and current MSNBC contributor Clint Watts and funded by a neoliberal think tank, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, or ASD. The ASD Advisory Council includes neoconservative author Bill Kristol, former ambassador to Russia Michael McFaul, ex-Hillary for America Chief John Podesta, and former heads or deputy heads of the CIA, NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security. Now to interrupt, the screen cap shows Second Secomsec Michael Chertoff, President Ilves, I told you about him before, David Kramer, Bill Kristol, Mike McFaul, Michael Morrell, Anna Palacio, and John Podesta. That source gave me the credentials on two of the people from whom Matt Taibbi sought comment but didn't get it. Now, on with the thread. News outlets for years cited Watts and Hamilton 68 when claiming Russian bots were amplifying an endless parade of social media causes against strikes in Syria, in support of Fox host Laura Ingraham, the campaigns of both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Well, that's a combination for you. Hamilton 68 was the source for stories claiming Russian bots pushed terms like deep state or hashtags like Fire McMaster, Schumer shut down, walk away, release the memo, Alabama Senate race, and Parkland shooting, among many others. The secret ingredient to Hamilton 68's analytical method? A list. Our analysis has linked 600 Twitter accounts to Russian influence activities online, was how the site put it at launch. Hamilton 68 never released the list, claiming the Russians will simply shut the accounts down. All those reporters and TV personalities making claims about Russian bots never really knew what they were describing. Twitter executives were in a unique position to recreate Hamilton's list, reverse engineering it from the site's requests for Twitter data. Concerned about the deluge of Hamilton-based news stories, they did so, and what they found shocked them. These accounts, they concluded, are neither strongly Russian nor strongly bots. No evidence to support the statement that the dashboard is a finger on the pulse of Russian information ops, hardly illuminating a massive influence operation. In layman's terms, the Hamilton 68 barely had any Russians. In fact, apart from a few Russia Today accounts, it's mostly full of ordinary Americans, Canadians, and British. It was a scam. Instead of tracking how Russia influenced American attitudes, Hamilton 68 simply collected a handful of mostly real, mostly American accounts and described their organic conversations as Russian scheming. Twitter immediately recognized these Hamilton-driven news stories posed a major ethical problem, potentially implicating them. Real people need to know they've been unilaterally labeled Russian stooges without evidence or recourse, Roth wrote. Some Twitter execs badly wanted to out Hamilton 68 after Russians were blamed for hyping the Parkland shooting hashtag. One wrote, "Why can't we say we've investigated and citing Hamilton 68 is being wrong, irresponsible, and biased?" Yoel Roth wanted a confrontation. My recommendation at this stage is an ultimatum. You release the list or we do, he wrote. However, there were internal concerns about taking on the politically connected Alliance for Securing Democracy. We have to be careful in how much we push back on ASD publicly, said future White House and NSC spokesperson Emily Horn. I also have been very frustrated in not calling out Hamilton 68 more publicly, but understand we have to play a longer game here, wrote Carlos Monye, the future senior advisor to Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. So the legitimate people, as one Twitter exec called them, never found out they'd been used as fodder for mountains of news stories about Russian influence. Because the Twitter files contains the list, they've begun finding out. I'm shocked, says Sonia Mansour, who as a child lived through civil war in Lebanon. Supposedly in a free world, we are being watched at many levels by what we say online. I've written a book about the U.S. Constitution, says Chicago-based lawyer Dave Shetrakas. How I made a list like this is incredible to me. When I was growing up, my father told me about the McCarthyite blacklist, says Oregon native Jacob Levitch. As a child, it would never have occurred to me that this would come back in force and broadly in a way designed to undermine rights we hold dear. Even Twitter execs were stunned to read who was on the list, wrote policy chief Nick Pickles about British comic Old Holborn, a wind-up merchant. I follow him and I wouldn't say he's pro-Russian. I can't even remember him tweeting about Russia. I'm listed as a foreign bot, said conservative media figure Dennis Michael Lynch. As a proud tax-paying citizen, charitable family man, and honest son of a U.S. Marine, I deserve better. We all do. Conservative editor John Lauria, too, was angered to find out he was on the list. That's consortium editor, which targeted voices across the spectrum. Organizations like Hamilton 68 are in business to enforce an official narrative, which means excising inconvenient facts, which they call misinformation. What makes this an important story is the sheer scale of the news footprint left by Hamilton 68's digital McCarthyism. The quantity of headlines and TV segments dwarfs the impact of individual fabulists like Jason Blair or Stephen Glass. Hamilton 68 was used as a source to assert Russian influence in an astonishing array of news stories. Support for Brett Kavanaugh, or the Devin Nunes memo, the Parkland shooting, manipulation of black voters, attacks on the Mueller investigation. These stories raise fears that in the population, and most insidious of all, were used to smear people like Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii as foreign assets and drum up sympathy political causes like Joe Biden's campaign by describing critics as Russian-aligned. Incredibly and ironically, these stories were also frequently used as evidence of the spread of fake news on sites like Twitter. It was a lie. The illusion of Russian support was created by tracking people like Joe Lauria, Sonia Mansour, and Dave Shestrakas. Virtually every major American news organization cited these fake tales, even fact-checking sites like Snopes and PolitiFact. Twitter didn't have the guts to out Hamilton 68 publicly, but did try to speak to reporters off the record. Reporters are chafing, said Horn. It's like shouting into a void. Roth was offended by the idea that tweets on certain themes suggested subversion. Can we talk about how incredibly condescending? If you talk about these things, you must have been duped by Russian propaganda. Again, even Roth, like most Twitter execs, an ardent Democratic partisan, saw that the Hamilton scheme would lead people to assert that any right-leaning content is propagated by Russian bots. At least two other research institutions that use similar methodologies and were cited as sources in news stories were also criticized in Twitter email correspondence. MSNBC, Watts, The Washington Post, Politico, Mother Jones, which did at least 14 Hamilton 68 stories. the Alliance for Securing Democracy, and the offices of politicians like Dianne Feinstein all refused comment, unless you count this. And here he refers to that snide tweet from Alliance Securing Democracy referencing their for public consumption statements on methodology. This was an academic scandal as well, as Harvard, Princeton, Temple, NYU, GWU, and other universities promoted Hamilton 68 as a source. Perhaps most embarrassingly, elected officials promoted the site and invited Hamilton experts to testify. Dianne Feinstein, James Lankford, Richard Blumenthal, Adam Schiff, and Mark Warner were among the offenders. The mix of digital McCarthyism and fraud did great damage to American politics and culture. News outlets that don't disavow these stories or still pay Hamilton vets or as analysts shouldn't be trusted. Every subscriber to those outlets should write to editors about the issue. For more from the Twitter files, follow Barry Weiss, Lee Fang, Mike Schellenberger, the Free Press, and others. Twitter had no input in this story. Searches were conducted by a third party. Some material may have been left out. For more on this story, read the detailed news story at Racket News, and there's a link in the tweet. And special thanks to Matt Orfala for putting together video for this segment. Much more to come. So ends the thread. Before I go further with what Matt Taibbi said, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, after he dropped the thread, Matt Taibbi quote tweeted the first tweet, the anchor tweet, and added this pithy statement, quote, "Again, news organizations which do not publicly disavow these Hamilton 68 stories should not be trusted, and subscribers and followers of such outlets, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, NBC News, and especially Mother Jones, should write in to complain." Unquote, Matt Taibbi. Now that last is telling. Mother Jones has been a leftist publication for as long as it has existed. But until now, I have never seen it cooperate with any kind of elite. We now see it taking feed essentially from the CIA, the NSC, and the World Economic Forum. In fact, Mr. Taibbi included a screen cap from Mother Jones in one of his tweets. Indeed, Mr. Taibbi promised to assemble a list of news stories and TV segments pegged to Hamilton 68. He said he hoped to publish that over the weekend. I have a link in the description to his tweet expressing that promise. He said more. In 4 more tweets, all of which appear in the description, quote, "Hamilton 68's blue-red founding team of Jamie Fly and Laura Rosenberger told Politico they couldn't reveal the dashboard accounts because the Russians will simply shut them down. The real reason? It was baloney. Instead of tracking how Russia influenced American attitudes, Hamilton 68 simply collected a handful of mostly real, mostly American accounts and described their organic conversations as Russian scheming. Twitter conducted a forensic analysis of the Hamilton 68 list. On page 2, and that's linked in the tweet, you could see a breakdown of visibility filtering labels. For example, Trends Blacklist, that ratifies reporting by Barry Weiss about Twitter's shadow banning techniques. Close quote. He leaves a link in the tweet and continues, quote, "It's the first time this has needed saying, but Rachel Maddow needs to answer for giving this baloney so much oxygen. It was once potentially career-ending for a journalist to fall for a scam like Hamilton 68, and news organizations that got outed for publishing one fake story would have law firms do outside audits and so on. Mother Jones did over a dozen Hamilton 68 stories, and I'll bet they won't even comment. I also think voters in the states that elected Senators Mark Warner, Jim Lankford, Dianne Feinstein, and other politicians who promoted Hamilton 68's work should explain themselves. Very hard to believe they didn't know." Close quote. Now note the identity of the second senator, James Lankford, Republican from Oklahoma. A quick search on him suggests that he might have tacked to the right since the election of 2020. But Matt Taibbi is correct. Senator Lankford, you've got some splaining to do, with apologies to Desi Arnaz Sr. But Senators Mark Warner of Virginia and Dianne Feinstein of California, of them I expect no better. Those two would self-justify in using Hamilton 68 material in the furtherance of their cause. Reaction varies, as usual, from wow to there you see to ho-hum. In the ho-hum category, physician Alistair McAlpine accuses Taibbi of carrying Elon's water for these nothing burger Twitter files. In reply, someone calls out Dr. McAlpine for giving assurances on the immunizations against a virus that shall remain nameless. Assurances that many fewer people believe these days. I have a link in the description to that person's tweet calling out Dr. McAlpine. Elon Musk expressed anger in this ironical statement. Quote, "An American group made false claims about Russian election interference to interfere with American elections," unquote, Elon Musk. I have a link in the description to that tweet. And to user Jim Stinson's tweet, calling out another news organization, McClatchy, who also published stories about Russian bots. Now of note is that Harmeet Dillon follows McClatchy, so does Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona. Not that Harmeet Dillon matters anymore. She lost her bid to oust Ronna McDaniel as chair of the RNC. I also have links in the description to 6 more tweets giving reactions agreeing with Taibbi and pouring contempt on legacy media, universities, and other Hamilton 68 followers. Here are the quotes. "I realize the media lied in 2011. NBC News is extremely deceptive. Either they're all incompetent or they all conspired to push this deliberate lie. How can these universities claim to be elite when they're spreading misinformation? Because of all these lies from mainstream media and 3-letter agencies tore our country apart, there needs to be accountability for these actions. These universities have very little standing anymore. They are a joke, optically and politically. They've been warped from what they were. And last, this sausage is especially gross, especially the MSM's role in making it." And now, a final analysis. Hamilton 68 reminds me of 1984 by George Orwell. They in fact function as a ministry of truth, only instead of INGSOC, they serve AMSOC, American socialism. And instead of saying we have always been at war with East Asia, they say we have always been at war with Russia. War is an instrument of fear. Those bent on internal tyranny always use the fear of external attack to explain their behavior. I say explain, because you can never justify nor excuse it either. Taibbi assumes that Twitter's moderational team were not simpatico with Hamilton 68 or Alliance Securing Democracy. Therefore, Twitter executives feared that organization, as Chinese subjects might fear the Chinese Communist Party. But notice, many of the executives urging caution got jobs in the Biden administration. You want to know what I think? I think the deep state salted Twitter with troublemakers. They then rewarded their loyalty with plum jobs beginning in 2021. And how could anyone promise that? And how could these executives believe their promises? Either those persons on both sides were maniacs, or they had reason to know that the fix would be in. Interpret that however you like. Elon Musk understands at least what demonstrably happened at Twitter. His expression of anger suggests that he is determined never to let that happen again. But others have expressed the need for parallel institutions so that future Hamilton 68s literally cannot matter. Links in the description of the article, to Matt's 3 introductory tweets, to the main thread, to a tweet demanding an explanation from various legacy media organs, to his promise of a collection of stories that depended on Hamilton 68, to his after thread expressing his anger with his fellow journalists and those 3 senators, to the exchange between Dr. McAlpine and his detractor, to Elon Musk's angry observation about election interference, to the 6 other tweets expressing thanks to Matt Taibbi and anger at what he revealed, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to rsilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to my Twitter Files playlist, to my earlier State Actors video, and to a video by Jeremy at the Quartering giving his description of this thread. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.